Welcome to Parenting Tips with Dr. Glow on the WDKX Podcast Network, where the conversation never stops. Today is, early June, and I have recently traveled to the state of Hawaii. And one of the things that I recognized and realized as an adult, as a senior adult and an adult who has raised children and traveled with children, is the clothing and the attire and what people are wearing. In other words, parents, how are you dressing? How are you dressing your children? And probably the biggest thing I saw was that people did not dress for travel. They did not dress for the cold airport. They did not dress for the cold airplane. And definitely for the cold restaurants that were visited. And one of the biggest things that I try to enforce for myself personally is to layer. I may have something under my top shirt in case I am cold, and also I may have a jacket or a pashmina or a shawl that is very easily tucked into a backpack or a crossbody. So that's probably me as an adult, Gloria. So when I look at children, when I look at youth, and I look at teens, I also have to ask the question, how are you dressing? Because one of the biggest things that I've seen is people are sitting on chairs and sitting in places that may not be very sanitary. And if your child has got on short shorts, mom, dad, I mean a 7 year old, 10 year old with short shorts and sleeves, that are bare, arms that are bare, they can pick up some germs. And it does happen, especially if they get a cut. And so you have to be conscientious about linen tops that are long sleeved or linen pants, cotton items that will help to protect their skin. Let's not even talk about the sun and sunburn. Yes, people with melanin, we get sunburns. As a matter of fact, I have a sunburn on one of my arms, and I realize how it happened. But yes, I did use sunscreen, but I think what I didn't do was put some more in that particular area, and that's why it's affected. So we have to be aware of how we're dressing. We're going into the summer months. And if you're not traveling, let's talk about what happens within the community. What our children are wearing. And yes, you may go to the swimming pool, whether it's a public or a private place, whether it's the beach. You have to be conscientious about what your child is wearing and understand the importance of protecting their skin. So, yeah, I'm talking about their health. The other thing that is so critical, especially for those tweeners, preteens, and even teenagers who are under your care, mom, under your care, dad, is what they're wearing. And one of the biggest things that really got to me was the very short shorts, or what we call Daisy Dukes. I get it, I understand it's hot, but we have to have a level of privacy, I could say, or a level of, you know what, I am not going to show everything, but I am going to stay cool. And sometimes the coolest items are those that are loose fitting, where there can be air that can come from the wind to cool a person off, and especially children. I do suffer from heat exhaustion, and one of the things I noticed that close fitting clothes, tight fitting clothes, and the doctor even told me were not the best things for me to wear, and that I should consider loose fitting cotton based clothes, linen clothes, those things that are breathable And our children need the same thing. Yeah, I understand we want to protect them in all kinds of ways. We want to protect them from predators. We want to protect them from any type of harm. But come on, let's protect their health as well, their mental as well as their physical health. I know sitting with short shorts on a hot leather seat is not the best thing for the legs of a child. It's not the best thing for the legs of an adult as well. So, how are you dressing? How are you dressing your children? How are you dressing yourself? It can impact your health and your mental being. Understand, I am not throwing any criticism or any shade toward anybody, but what I am doing is making you aware. You know, education is in my DNA, making you aware and educating you about the impact of what you are wearing and your child is wearing. So let me go back to Hawaii. Yes, I saw a lot of buck cheeks, and there were swimsuits that showed the cleavage as well as the rear end. And I had to say, okay, they've got the shape for it, or oh boy, they don't have the shape for it. Yeah, I was passing a little judgment. I was critical. But I also like to say to people, take a look at the mirror, turn around, ask someone to look at you, and really take a look at how what you're presenting in the public is really affecting how the public may feel about you. When boarding the airplane, one of the things I saw was one of the flight attendants looking at a passenger as she was boarding and what that passenger had on. And there was a judgment call right in the face. Of course, the passenger didn't see the look. But there was a judgment call in the face of that flight attendant. And I just put my head down and I just chuckled a little. We are judged by, unfortunately, what we wear. And I always say to my students when I was in the classroom, as we talked about interviews, I said, how would you feel about your doctor coming into your examination room and he or she was dressed in a tank top and, let's say, some boxer shorts? Or they came in and they were not dressed in a manner that you expected. So level up, improve upon, and if you're doing it great, keep doing it great. But understand, it does make an impression on others. I used to travel as a bum when I was younger, and then I said, you know what, Gloria, you're going to step this up. I was in my 30s, late 30s. And I started dressing in slacks and shoes and sometimes a blazer or a blouse that was dressy and a jacket. And I noticed the difference between how I was treated at the gate and how I was treated elsewhere within the airport versus when I was in my 20s and I dressed like a bum. I passed that on to a friend of mine, and she decided to try it out. And she did. And she found that her treatment was better because of what she was wearing. So, what are you wearing today? I don't care if it's the grocery store, the bank, or elsewhere. Think about it from head to toe, the impact, the impression you make on others. And not just for you, Mom, not just for you, Dad, but also for your children. It does make a difference. I pause because I reflect upon what I enforce with my daughters. And it has to start young. You have been listening to Parenting Tips with Dr. Glow on the WDKX Podcast Network, where the conversation never stops. Question: have you thought about shifting based upon what I've shared today? And if so, how?